Cancer, diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and asthma are all examples of non-communicable diseases, and sadly, these diseases are the leading cause of death globally. But do they really affect us here in Africa? And are Africans really living with these diseases? Find out here at the African NCD Champions podcast as we share incredible stories of Africans living with non-communicable diseases. My name is Ogweno Stephen and I'll be your host. Let's roll. Welcome to another episode of the African NCD Champions podcast, where we host incredible champions living with non-communicable diseases and sharing the experiences, their stories, and what they've been able to go through. And today we have quite the guest, Mr. Ezekiel Libamira. He has quite the story and has been championing in the NCD space for quite some time. So it's exciting to hear your story. And without further ado, give us a brief introduction.
Okay, thank you so much first for the opportunity to host me today. It's indeed a privilege. Briefly, like you said, Ezekiel Libamira, that's my official name. And like I mentioned the other time when we met, for the last, give or take, almost 40 years, many people, especially your age group, they refer to me as Uncle Zach. That's a story for another day.
Yeah.
Why that came.
Maybe we hint it a little bit.
And I will hint it by asking you a question, a provoking question. Where were you in 1978?
Yeah, it's not anywhere near this earth. Yeah.
1978 up to 80, I used to appear on the only TV station in Kenya at that time, on VOK. And there was a program called Saturday Special Show. And it was a musical program, just like the one that you have different ones today. And in that program, I was one of the main dancers. And up to in those few years, I was using my showbiz name that time was Zaki Lay. And of course it keeps changing depending on where you were talking to. Then it's then that we coined, as I was growing up, we coined it's to Uncle Zach, because now many people began looking to me as a role model, as a mentor, and I'm good about them. Some of them older than me, some of them younger, but they admired them. Like I said, a young person whose dancing skills are so which word do I want to use? So unique. 1980, I took part in a national dancing competition, and I was after emerging the winner. I was to represent Kenya in London. My age didn't allow me. There was a cut-off
an age limit.
And that's basically the story. So that's when Uncle Zach came in. Then I got into, later on in life, I got into a space where I would give lots of encouragement, especially to people in the informal sector, the slums. I looked around and checked how people may lose hope when they think will amount to nothing. But having studied the who is who across the world, but mainly in Kenya, I found that those are guys who came from the ordinary, mtaani.
Yeah.
So I said, why don't I go? Because those guys, when you meet them, they don't want to share their story. I said, let me go share their story to people to encourage them. You too can be like Ogweno. That time, maybe Ogweno is the group MD of Nation newspapers. People think he was born as a silver spoon. So then that's when the term Uncle Zach continued growing. And I have mentored people for that that season.
That's a long time.
That's quite a bit. And I still enjoy it. I still want to make a difference in my own space, for especially people who may see no hope. And I'll say, why don't I give them that, not just the stories, but where possible, give them a vehicle to
to help them get there.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's me.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, we needed to start with that so that people get a good context of you have a very rich history of where you're coming from. So that needed to be had. So apart from that, so what else have you been doing throughout?
Very good. Before I forget, it was important to mention mimi nimezaliwa mtaani. I was born in a place in the Sheng, they would call it Okongo, which is Makongeni. My late father used to work for the railways, so all my schooling was done in Nairobi. I went to Ngara at City Primary School. Then I moved on to Upper Hill School. Then I began doing a sales career and did a salesmanship course at the Nairobi University. Later on, I enrolled with the National School of Salesmanship, Manchester, England. And of course, what today you call online. That time you have to go to the post to get your material. I began my career of sales in 1981. But at the same time, I'm also studying. At the same time, but just before that, I had to raise my fees. I don't know whether it's okay to mix it Swahili. I did kazi ya mjengo. I worked in a construction company in the national area, Lunga, making 20 shillings per day. 20
shillings. I mean, by today's standards, that's how much.
How do I put it? Okay, let's put this in context. A house in Buruburu Phase 1, which today goes for about 35,000 per month, was going for 1,600 a month. So just multiply that and you see what 20 bob is. The other way to look at it, 40 shillings was the cost of transport by a kamba from Nairobi to Eldoret. Which now you're paying about 1,000 bob.
So that's like maybe 500 per day,
give or take. So that's what I was making. And from there now I began my sales career. Different areas. I did selling advertising space. I did real estate. Then I moved to finance. Worked for a finance company. It used to be banks, commercial banks, finance companies, and building societies. So I worked for a finance company as a marketing representative, and then I moved to tourism, and then shipping, and finally I got tired of employment, and I quit employment in 1994. I said I want to do business and also continue to give you guys hope, and there are very many of them today. Quite a good number of them. Let me say the term I borrowed from John Maxwell. I met John Maxwell in 2004, and he has the saying, train up a leader until the leader is better than you. So I help people, and I see people driving Mercedes, and they come to me and tell me,
you trained it,
Uncle Zach, if it wasn't for you, I'll not be driving this car. Whenever they're at the stop and they just express that kind of gratitude, and I feel nice. I feel I've done something good. And many places I've been to the slums, and later on I'm talking in a church, the story like I'm going to share now, and somebody comes and tells me, Uncle Zach, you spoke in our church. The guy was a youth, now he's a pastor. So I really enjoy that. So I went into business, and of course throughout in business I've had my own own challenges. I will share and to continue part of what contributed to the challenge that I am, the health challenge that that I've worked with for a while. So that's Uncle Zach. I am a family man. I'm blessed with 3 children. Michelle Nkambule, he's 32, and he's married, and so I'm a grandfather through him.
Clearly.
Yes. I'm blessed with Lucase Ndiema. He's 31. Since the crash program.
Clearly. Not a very big gap there.
So he's also married, and then there was a long holiday, and we were blessed with a baby girl. She's called Melody. She's now 18, just finishing Form 6 in the other system in Arusha, and that's basically Zach or
interesting. That's Uncle Zach,
Yes.
So, back to your, and we sort of move into the NCD sort of health challenge that you sort of, managed to overcome. And so, what was that, and what's the story behind that? Because there's a very interesting story in that. So, how did that look like? When did you discover that you're living with that? How did it manifest? And then how did you, move into overcoming it?
Very good question. In 2008, I was struggling with talking. And I'm advancing in age. So you think it's just a normal age-related challenges. Struggling with breathing. So when I'm talking, you have to keep on repeating what I'm saying, especially on the phone. And struggling with hearing as well. And it went on, so I chose to go and see an ENT. My family doctor is an ENT. When I see her, she looks at me and she gives me she checks and she says, this is what you call, I guess in a layman's language, congested nostrils. She gives me some medicine and tells me this will clear it in 2 weeks. Fast forward, in 2 weeks it gets worse. And I think, not out of disrespect, after some time, I go and seek a second opinion. Friends see I'm struggling with pain, a lot of pain internally, and I can't tell what this is. And I go seek a second opinion, so I go to another ENT at and the Nairobi's ENT Center. So I meet a very nice young doctor called Dr. Nyawanda. I have to mention his name because he was very good. He checks me. I have tooth problem, toothache. I want to go see a dentist. No, don't go see a dentist. Let's just check. There could be something else. So he checks me and tells me there seems to be a tumor. And that tumor is what is causing pressure on the gums, and that's how you're having teeth problems. But what we're going to do, we need to send you to a CT scan, which they did. And I go for a CT scan at one of those places. Is it General Accident House or whatever? I can't remember. One of the places. And the CT scan confirms there's a tumor. But he took me through a good process, and he told me, if we confirm there's a tumor, there's another process. We will have to go for biopsy. It was my first time I was hearing the word biopsy, and I didn't ask what it is. And it says biopsy is to test whether the tumor is cancerous. Oh, okay, I'd heard there's benign tumor, there's malignant. So I knew malignant is cancer, benign is not cancer. Then he tells me, and he looks to me in the eyes and he tells me, Mr. Libamira, 80% of our patients who go for that test, they usually come out without cancer. Deep inside me, I thump my chest.
You're like, I could be part of the 80.
I'll be part of the 80. Let me qualify that. Why did I think I'm part of the 80? I had been to the same hospital a year earlier. Those health challenges, you go check why am I having the health challenge. I'm tested, and the lady looks at me, does a blood sample. And she tells me, it was a Sunday like today, tells me, come back after 40 minutes for the blood test results. Mr. Ogweno, I don't know whether you're married, but I'll tell you this. Any man who is waiting for results of a blood test, where even if he is 1,000% faithful to his wife, he panics.
He does. That's true. That's very. Now that was incredible. Thank you for listening in. Share this with your networks and follow us on all social media at Storelink and at NCD Champions. See you on the next one.